Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. We are the show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. With me tonight, as always, is my good friend, Drew Crawley. Drew, what's up, buddy?
Hey, not a whole lot, my friend. We are in the rare time when we record a show on a weeknight.
I know.
So it was a full day of work, I think, for everybody here. And then, came home, watched a little TV, played with the puppy, and now we're here. So it's a good day, good start to the week. I got out of bed this morning to go to the gym around 7, and my car wouldn't start. So just Monday.
Yeah.
You got to love it.
Well, this is the right way to end a Monday, right?
Yes.
Put the rest of the week on a good note. And our guest host with us tonight, our good friend, Alan Bishop.
What's up?
Yes, the alchemist of the Black Forest of Indiana. I'm trying to get these monikers right, Alan. So am I doing okay?
You're doing fine, but you're supposed to smile a lot harder when you say it because I can't say it without laughing at myself. So,
hey, and we have with us, man. When Drew and I first started doing the show, about last year ago, September of 21. We made a list of people that we wanted to have on the show, and one of the names at the very top of the list was Todd Leopold, and we're honored to have Todd with us tonight. So, Todd, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we've got just a couple of other introductory things to do. Then we're going to dive into some conversation with Todd and taste some of his fantastic whiskey. And I'm looking forward to the music conversation because we've talked a little bit music in the past, and I love where Todd's coming from. But first of all, we want to tell you a little bit about the Bar Cart Co-op. Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends that make content for the bourbon enthusiast, the spirits lover. One show, Distillers Talk, is with our good friend and guest host tonight, Alan Bishop. He does that show with Christy Atkinson, and they will talk with distillers across the country and around the world about very detailed issues in the distillation process and in the whiskeys that they make. I believe Todd has been on that show before, and that was a really great episode. Alan also has something he calls One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. You got a question about something distillation, you email Alan. He'll answer your question, take a video of the response, and he'll post it. Always some really good geek out stuff there. My Whiskey Den with Pat and Mike. That show comes on Monday nights, 9 o'clock. That is where craft whiskey is king. And then our show, Bourbon Turntable. So while you're there, just punch that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our fun. Got one more great announcement for you.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that.
Well, I thought I did.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that bell notification to find out when new episodes are coming out, which do come out every single Wednesday on all of the services: Spotify, Apple Music, Google, maybe Amazon, definitely YouTube. And always hit that like button, but hit it an odd number of times. So then that way it stays as a like.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. I see Mike didn't want to go to work for us tonight because their show is going on tonight. So he was kind of on strike for us for a bit. But hey, we've got Todd Leopold with us. And Todd, welcome to Bourbon Turntable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
We are excited to have you here. And I know that we have some wonderful whiskeys that we're going to start tasting here in just a minute. But I wanted to get a little bit on you and your background first. And I wanted to maybe take an approach because that you may not have been asked some of these questions before. Now, when you grew up, was there alcohol in your home? Did mom and dad drink at all?
Yes. It wasn't a huge part. That was more family reunions. Anytime that you get together, the way I describe it, I think this is a very Midwestern and Syracuse is where my parents are from thing. Where you'd have the glass, you'd have a cocktail napkin under it, and everybody held their drinks like this. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Like that's a very, very vivid memory. And of course they would, oh, you want a sip?
Right.
Okay. And of course it tasted like kerosene, whatever the hell was in there. I talked a bit more with my mom. I thought that my grandmother on my mother's side was a Beefeater gin drinker. Apparently that was just during the summer. She was one of those people that was very hardcore about white after, is it Memorial Day or whatever? You can tell I don't follow any of these things. But she was wild turkey. She was a very, very ardent wild turkey drinker and went through more than a little bit. It was the first time I didn't know what cocktail hour was or snacks. When we were kids, you had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What the hell is a snack? Get serious. And when we visited our grandparents, my mother's father was a colonel, retired as a colonel, got the GI Bill to get his mechanical engineering degree. So the first to go to college in our family at the University of Maryland. But before that, they were Army brats. And they're the one that they really enjoyed. They lived up in Alaska for a few years, and they loved it because all of the people stationed there, not all of them, but a lot of them had kids, and so the kids got to play together all year long. And you can imagine being a kid in an impossible amount of snow. That would be fun. I mean, who the heck wouldn't enjoy doing that? But after Maryland, he finally settled down to get away from the snow and took a job in Syracuse.
To get away from the snow, yes.
So for those who don't know, the Syracuse has very famous lake effect snow. Yeah. And every year that Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse area for decades just gets dumped on. And I definitely remember we spent some Christmases up there where you would just tunnel through. You could make tunnels in the backyard, and it's just a glorious thing for kids to enjoy. I always feel sorry for kids that don't get that don't get the Four Seasons, and you sure as hell got that in Syracuse. Where it was, and actually that kind of ties into a nice music memory, because those Christmases was when they would air the Charlie Brown special. Yeah. And to this day, that Vince Guaraldi Christmas special is Desert Island classic for me. I think the song "Skating" is my favorite album of all time. And we finally my sister-in-law got my daughter, who's 8 now, a record player. And of course, what's the first album, right? Vince Guaraldi got it for Christmas, and a couple with Ella Fitzgerald on it. And I'm looking forward. We're gonna do a trip. She's been sick, nothing serious, but just colds on and off. But I am very much looking forward to the first trip to the record store with her here. In the coming weeks.
Fantastic.
And
you're killing it as a dad.
What's that?
Starting with, I said you're killing it as a dad. Vince Guaraldi and Ella Fitzgerald, his first records, bravo.
She loves it. She's been she does song and dance stuff and has been in play since she was 4.
Yeah,
which is just wonderful, because that's the last thing on the planet I would ever want to do. My wife and I are the two people at parties who, if I can't get away with it anymore, unfortunately, would be the two kind of sitting in the back playing with the dog. So the fact that she likes attention and likes performing is wonderful.
100%
awesome.
her. I can't relate to it at all. But you go and cheer on. So we're looking forward to that first trip to the record store. And I promise not to be that overly hip dad who buys her the Velvet Underground and Nico at age 8. Try and be super cool.
Right. That's awesome. I had a proud dad moment the other day. I realized that Penny knows the lyrics to War Pigs.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Did you see that 50th anniversary kerfuffle? They did a logo for the 50th anniversary, and of course, if you know what the album, if you're even a passing knowledge of Pink Floyd, you know the prism.
Oh yes, I did see that.
Yeah, the Pink Floyd thing. Yeah.
So everybody took that the wrong way.
Yeah. Never gonna listen to your band again.
And decided that this was so. Which at the same time, if you pay attention to Pink Floyd's lyrics at all, it shouldn't be much of us anyway.
Right.
The whole thing was just wow.
Yeah, that's the magic of Facebook.
Yeah, outrage culture, and everybody needs to take a break from that shit for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
What can I find to be offended about today?
Yeah,
have an absinthe and a coffee and shut the fuck up.
I just
maybe not in that order, Alan.
Yeah,
you gotta have them together.
Can we get that on a T-shirt from you?
Yes, yes. Red Bull gives you wings. This fucks you up.
So you,
awesome.
At what before you were in Colorado, you were in Michigan, correct?
No, sir. My whole thing is a bit wonky. My dad worked for the federal government, and so you had to travel to get promoted.
Okay.
So he came out to get his massive $18,000 a year salary in Colorado in 1979. But by then we had his first job was in Arizona, then New Mexico, where Scott was born, then Pennsylvania. I'm a Pennsylvania kid. We were there for about 10 minutes, but there for just 2 years while I worked on a federal park on the Allegheny Trail, National Trail. And he designed, the bathrooms and the facilities and the recreation and all that kind of stuff. He worked for the Department of Interior. And then we moved to Georgia, where my sister was born, then suburbs of DC, California for 1 year while the house was being built, and then Colorado, and we settled there. So we've been a little bit everywhere.
Yeah.
Very good. So let's take a pour of this. We have the holiday edition of the 3-chamber rye. This is 2021, I believe, bottled in bond. And this was the second 3-chamber rye, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep. Second release. That is all, if I'm not mistaken, over 5 years. 5 years old. Fruit's getting a little bit more developed. It's all kind of coming together a bit more. It's going to be a nice contrast because the next one that you're getting has one more summer on it. Okay. And to me, it's night and day. But it's coming away from the larger emphasis on lavender, larger emphasis on what I've learned people call rye dough. I mean, I can kind of understand. I don't speak the same language that other people do with this stuff I've learned. Which is fine. You taste what you taste. But it's starting to come into its own. It's this in particular. For me, you're starting to see, why the geezers talk about that. 5 to 8 year range is really kind of being the sweet spot. And the question is, with the way that I distill, do you want more fruit? And of course, the answer for those people, yes, Todd, I want fruit. Yes, which is fine. Alan and I have discussed this many times. I've learned to not quite be in the sweet spot for the whiskey zeitgeist. What are you going to do? But happily enough, people are buying our stuff that the lights are still on.
Sure.
It's more fun to be like 0.57 off anyways.
Well, that's what I would say. I'm very proud of the whiskeys and the flavors.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And the
yeah,
we're getting in it. And
there's like a distinct to me. So I pick Penny and I pick a lot of honeysuckle in the summertime to dry for gin, and I get a lot of that dried honeysuckle in there. And like there's a stewed apple, and then there's almost like if somebody blinded me on this and not on taste but on the nose, I would have thought that this was a single malt.
I would have too.
Yeah.
Yep. It comes across very much the cereal grain, like almost like the Honey Nut Cheerio thing that you get on certain single malts, about the same age as well.
Almost even a little like brand characteristic.
Yeah. But on the, go ahead. Sorry, Todd.
I apologize.
We're so excited. We're not going to let you talk. We just whiskey.
Honey is the number one thing that we get out of that myself and the crew here gets out of that 20% that we're dropping in. It tastes honeyed, or this is going to sound stupid, but confectioner's honey. Which is no thing, but you know what I'm talking about. That kind of, it kind of has a crystallized flavor, an aroma that I find really appealing. So for the rye, the 3-chamber rye moving forward, we're sticking to this. I really like it, and we're moving towards making this a 10-year-old only release. That's what we're trying to do, to get it so that it's got, the fruit is just developing so well. Trying to add more years, and maintaining that price point. So trying to give people more value as the years roll by. Is kind of where we settled. And the one thing, I know you guys saw the YouTube video that we put together. The one thing I regret putting on was the explanation that if you took this 3-chamber still and the copper from it and made it into a column still, I asked the Vendome guys to do the math for me, you could get about 100+ barrels a day. This yields 2.
Right.
So when people sometimes may not understand that, the pricing on it, it's just the yield is really small.
Yeah.
And of course, that's why we reached out to do the collaboration, to try and bring that price point down.
Do you want a Picasso or do you want a print? I'm just saying.
I mean, I think it's a beautiful whiskey, and we're very, very proud of it. And it's singular. There's nothing else like it. And we've been lucky with the reception that we've had. But I understand that I don't think I've ever blown $200 on a bottle of whiskey either, but then I own a distillery, so
sure.
That kind of, so I get it.
I was gonna say, I know you're looking for the fruit to develop a little bit, but there's a beautiful pastry that almost has like a blueberry, and I would say kind of like a lemon zest thing. Almost reminds me of like a blueberry lemon croissant type thing. So that those fruit notes are really starting to come both from the brighter side of the citrus and the darker side of the berry. And I really like the way that those play off each other on the finish. That honey, crystallized honey note that you said, that just nailed it for me. That brought it together really well.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
This is by far, honestly, it's an odd word that people use often, but I don't think they use it the right way. That's the chewiest whiskey that I've ever had, truthfully. And that honey thing, the crystallized honey thing, like, so I think of like clover honey, where it's got like a little. I wouldn't go like, obviously I'm not black pepper. There is almost like I don't, maybe kind of like a little dried cayenne, but it's not capsaicin, right? There's not, it's not the soapy, it's not like hot. It's kind of hard to explain. It's an accent that's in there.
And just going off of memory, because I don't have that in front of me, but if I remember correctly, that I got more fruit on of like an apricot and a pear and apple off of the first 3-chamber as opposed to this one. Is that kind of a fair
100%? Lighter fruits, peaches, pears. You're starting to get I think when I'm nosing, and I'm sure it sounds like all three of you kind of seem to think in the same way. I think colors.
Yeah.
So I would very much say there was much more of an emphasis on the lighter fruits in the spectrum. And so this next, the sample I sent to you, the darker fruits are to me night and day between the red label and what I sent you is the blue label. And even more still from the very first release. So the depth is really adding complexity. I'm pleased that you noticed the chewiness. You know, that's a decision of running the 3-chamber with a thumper. Don't mind sharing with you guys that we started making bourbon on it.
Awesome.
And with that, I'm doing things the more traditional way. For one, we're malting corn for it.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Good.
Well, we have a malt house.
Yes.
It's kind of stupid to not use it, right? Crap. So, and we're using it as a stripping still, and running it as distilling it as second time in a copper still.
Awesome.
And so the choice that I made to use the thumper on the first one was kind of drifting off of what I had read and kind of making my own choices for the rye. And I think it turned out really, really well. I'm thrilled with how it worked. And sometimes you gotta, look at what other people are doing and say,
you did freaking awesome with that, by the way. And something else that looks like you probably already know this. I just spent Saturday evening in a meeting with a guy that I'm working on historic mash bills with, looking through some of the stuff that he has books for. So we came across the Sanborn fire maps of Lindale and White Mills, which is now where Brown Foreman is located. And it was very clear that they're running a 3-chamber as a beer still and a fire pot as a doubling still. Bourbon in the middle of Louisville, Kentucky.
See, so all of this stuff. So we're making a new. We've already started making a new video. So since I came out with the rye, I've been doing more research. David Wondrich has been doing more research. Noah Rothbaum, they co-authored the Oxford Companion to Spirits, right? That phone book that took them 10 years. So they've been working on research for the 3-chamber. And I went for the collaboration. I went to New York in January, and Noah, who lives in New York, took me to a very famous Jewish deli called Barney Greengrass, where you got the guys in the white T-shirt that are like, "What do you want?" Totally stressed out, but that you don't, it's kind of that soup Nazi vibe.
Oh yeah.
Where you better have your shit together. And I'm like, I don't know what I want. Help me. So anyways, we're sitting down and having breakfast with a New York author, sitting out on, they had a little patio, and we're eating the best bagel and lox I've ever had in my life, which I did not discover until college. Because we're in the middle of Wonder White Bread, Colorado. And I mean, how white am I? I didn't know that was a thing, and was like, oh my God, what have I been doing with breakfast my whole life? And, and of course, the sad thing, I was telling John Little how much longer it was before I had biscuits and gravy. I hadn't heard of that. Think about how many breakfasts I've had in my life where I just was eating Cheerios like an idiot.
All that lost gustatory time.
Exactly, that I missed out on. So anyway, so he's telling me about some of the work he did with the New York Public Library. And he found a companion piece to Crampton and Tolman. And the Crampton and Tolman is as a refresher, is the IRS piece where they did surveys of distilleries, right? They did a companion piece in 1933, which, so of course, about the distilleries that were during Prohibition making medicinal whiskey. Yeah, right. And he said, "You've seen the companion piece?" And I'm like, "No, what the hell are you talking about?" Yeah. Well, he sent it to me like 2 weeks later, right? And I'm reading through it, and lo and behold, there's 3-chamber rye, bourbon, sour mash. That was me the first time I'd seen in writing that a bourbon had been made in a chamber still. And of course, after that, we're coming up with all the other ones. And if you don't mind, I was going to read one that I found that I thought you'd get a kick out of.
And real quick, Todd, I have someone that you need to meet and some books that you need to see. So,
oh, please,
yes,
by all means. Again, how many times have we said this, Alan? Every time you think you got this shit figured out, you realize you're an idiot.
Right. Yeah. I have no clue what the hell's happening.
No idea what, and I'm just thanking God that I got the 3-chamber rye didn't suck. But anyway, so this is real good. This is a clipping they sent from, it's from 1913 Bonfort's Wine and Spirits Circular. And I'm going to skip down. The Old Fitzgerald, so yes, that Old Fitzgerald, is a high-priced whiskey because of its very expensive character of whiskey to manufacture. It is made as whiskeys were made in the state, Kentucky, before the war, Civil War, I'm assuming. That is, it is mashed and scalded in small tubs, and the mashing is done by hand with old-fashioned mash sticks. I think Alan and I can relate here. It is fermented without the use of fresh yeast after the first day's run, and is singled in a 3-chambered still and doubled in a copper kettle directly over a wooden fire.
Yep.
So this is Old Fitzgerald and Old Judge that they're describing. We can testify that this difficult matters in these days to find any distillers willing to use methods that I skipped over a bunch of stuff that are so expensive and that give such small returns in the matter of yield. So that's like the OG, oh my God, holy grail of bourbons. And it was made on a chamber still, exactly like Alan says. You use it as a still. You're not making cuts. You take your low wines, you put it into a copper still, and then you make your the cuts and put that down into a barrel after adding a bit of water.
This is why I love talking to you, because nothing that I say sounds crazy, because you have a 3-chamber and then I'm allowed to just ramble. So another good another thing to think about that I think people miss too with that 3-chamber bourbon thing, Todd. So the Wathans obviously were running log stills, right? Yeah. Which is basically a chamber still.
It's absolutely a chamber still.
Why would they go from a wooden chamber still to a copper pot still, knowing that that chamber still was giving them some special qualities? And it's not like back then, most of the time they weren't advertising like, hey, we're running a 3-chamber. You know what I mean? Because most people didn't know. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
It does help the throughput a little. The running it this way. So that's certainly, one reason. I was worried about doing that with the rye because I was afraid that you'd wind up losing too much. But of course, if you're running that whole still and making any cuts at all, and you're taking all of those tails, the rye water is getting carried over into your pot still. To me, there's not too much difference between running the 3-chamber still with a thumper, as I'm doing now, and making cuts.
No,
and running it as a stripper and distilling it a second time. There's not that much of a difference.
No, I think it would be if you had like a straight doubler, it'd be a big difference. But you know, run a thumper, then I think it's pretty easy to pull off for sure.
Yes.
Another thing that will make you happy on 3-chamber that I'm happy to report to you, Todd, is that because of you, not only are craft distillers interested in 3-chamber, now home distillers are interested in it. And there is a really, really, really good, reputable builder who will have a small home-sized 3-chamber available within the year.
Oh man, that's great. How great is that? How great is that?
So that kind of led to another question that I had, Todd. How many people have been reaching out to you since the first 3-chamber was released and the success that it's had, and just the incredible unique flavors that you get off of it?
Well, the big one that was exciting to me was, and I think I already shared this with you guys, that Booker No came out to have a look. because of course Beam Suntory owns Old Overholt. When Old Overholt was they had rows of 3-chamber stills, and boy, wouldn't that be something to see them, fire that up again. I'm working with a partner now, so I'm not certain how much I could help if somebody decided to do that, but outside of that, nobody's really. Vendome said nope. They said they had a couple people come to them in the last year. That never amounted to anything. So we ordered a new one, by the way. So we have a new one that's coming.
Awesome.
And it's 3 times the size of what we have now.
Hell yeah.
Which to us sounds huge. And of course, I'm feeling cool about this. And then, of course, as we're sitting down with the Shermans at Vendome, so it's going to be 3 times the size of that thing.
Did you go bigger chambers or did you go more chambers?
Bigger.
Gotcha.
Bigger. Good question, but bigger. But I'm sitting down with the Shermans, and of course, I'm saying now instead of 2 barrels a day, it's gonna do 6. And of course, right. Rob immediately started laughing and said, "Look out, Jack Daniels!" So put me in my place really quick. It is prohibitively expensive, and the days of having coopers on site has passed. Because if I had a cooper that knew what they were doing, that I trusted, this would have been wooden.
Go out of wood, yeah.
But because of the expense of it. But because I don't have that, well, and the other part of it is, once you go down that road, you really need to be running that 24 hours a day, and I'm too old for that shit.
Keeping it tight, yeah.
But and that's of course why they did that. But if you're a larger manufacturer, back in the day, the cost of copper back then wasn't that big of a deal. Now, we saw the price tag and it's like, holy shit.
So here's what's crazy about that though, Todd. So since you came out with this and having distillers talking and the few connections I do, I only know of maybe 3 other people that are trying to do anything. One of which is Thomas Earl McKenzie, which I don't think probably surprises you or anybody that knows him. The other one, there's a guy in Ohio that has had 2 built, but not by Vendome, and they're all stainless. But here's what's crazy. So you open the door, but because everybody wants to be able to claim something, no one is doing the exact same setup like what you did. Everybody's going off of all the other like crazy setups that they can find in all the books out there, etc. So none of them are laid out the same. None of them. They're all different. And the other ones are all, I think the one in Ohio, I want to say is like a 80 gallon per chamber or something like that.
Okay.
So, but it is a 3-chamber. So there's people out there playing with it, but I don't think most of them don't have anything up and running yet. So as far as I know, you're the only one that's got one up and running, other than that whatever it is, 2-chamber down in Barbados.
Yeah. Right. I don't know what he's doing with that one way or the other. It's. I apologize, Kevin.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I don't. It's what I said before. It's really expensive,
right?
And you can certainly make bad whiskey in it. There are no guarantees that what you make is going to come out, and it's just not efficient enough for somebody like Beam to invest, because several $100 million to get any meaningful amount of whiskey out of it. And so I thought we needed to hurry when we started it. I'm realizing that we didn't need to hurry at all. That what we're doing is somewhat crazy. But also, the reason that we did the collaboration was to come out with a second style, right? So the blend of so now I kind of look at us a bit like Lafrogue, right? It's a component in Johnny Walker, and that helps keep the lights on at Lafrogue, while the crazy people at Lafrogue or Leopold Brothers make their really flavorful, whiskeys. And it's so a wonderful partnership that was born out of dumb luck.
So one of the barriers of entry then is, okay, you have to build the still, and you've got to be willing to accept the yield that you get off of the still.
Yep.
But as far as running a still like that, is it like, okay, I can drive this car that's a pot still, or I can drive this car that's a column still. Now I can drive this car that's a 3-chamber. Is like I can drive this car, but I can't fly this plane.
I can't fly this plane.
Yeah.
I could not have done it without the experience that I've had.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that means brewing or distilling, and I'm sure Alan could run this in his sleep, but somebody that's new to the industry, like if this is your first still,
right?
But best of luck. I certainly would like to see it. I certainly don't. I'm sounding like I'm poo-pooing, and I'm not.
Right.
I'm thrilled to hear that other people are starting it, because that's what we were kind of hoping would happen. We just wanted to be the first ones, is all. Mm-hmm. Just because when you go to all that trouble, you don't want somebody to hear about it and then come out with a 2-year-old 3-chamber while you're letting it mature or something like that. But that's right. Obviously, I don't have to worry about that. That ship has sailed. So hearing about other people doing it and going back to this tradition is pretty wonderful. I don't know if trees are big enough to distill on the log anymore.
Right.
When I try and think about what that's like, but then you think of those photos of trees in the 1800s where it's like, okay, yeah, I can totally, that's absolutely big enough to be a chamber.
Yeah.
Some of these ridiculous trees. And so when you hear, I thought that the log still, there's a company that came out that said log still, and I'm like, oh, are they going to try it? No.
Nope.
Oh man. I mean, best of luck to them with whatever they're doing, but I thought that they might try it simply because of the name.
Yeah, it would have been awesome if they did. It was funny. So you were talking about learning to fly the plane. So I've had that little one that I told you about that I was working on done for probably about 6 months. And I've spent 6 months staring at it, and I've not yet been brave enough to actually do anything with it. So
I had that same thing when it landed, and I'm like, okay, I told Scott I know how to do this. This is
right.
This may have to sit for a few weeks while I get my gumption up.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's guys, let's pour this 6-year-old 3-chamber and take a nose and a taste of it, and maybe offer some comparisons to what we just tried.
Yeah, I've been sitting with it for a minute because I'm impatient, but it appeals to me in a different way. There is a richness and a darkness to this, not so much in a tannic way, but like the leather or the tobacco side of a flavor wheel. When you kind of think about it in those terms, the fruit is there as well, but it's quite a bit more pronounced in terms of sweetness. So, I get a little bit of like the blackberry notes, still a little bit of the blueberry that I was tasting before, but it's sweeter. It's less, that kind of tart blueberry, the little ones you get in the crate. It's the big, fat, juicy ones. Yeah. So I really enjoy this. The first one was incredible. And I loved it, but this one appeals to me in a little bit of a different way.
Ironically, I had just a little drop of that holiday one left in my glass before I rinsed it, and I took a drink of it to get rid of it, and it went straight peach cobbler on that last little drop.
That's nice. That's nice.
It's really delicious.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I sure do. It's been fun walking this along age-wise and barrel-wise, and the proof's still holding. It's still holding at 50 and change from that entry proof that we have at 50. And by the way, in the follow-up piece, Crampton and Tolman in 33. So that's 36 years after the Crampton and Tolman started, at least. Still at that 50% entry point, for all those distillers, which is pretty interesting.
This for me, the 6 year is really interesting because it's almost going in like a marmalade direction, right? It's got some there's some bright, like, I'm not gonna say like orange or even lemon, but almost like a lime sort of character going on in there that I really like.
Thank you. I get all of it. At some point, I'm going to find a goddamn lab that runs the old esters in the Crampton and Tolman. I went reach out to BDOS. I've looked at some other places that'll do isobutyl acetate and some of the other esters that I'm personally interested in. And I know that this, believe it or not, has quite a bit of isoamyl acetate from running tests on it, which can be pear, peach, banana, depending on your palate, I guess. But I really would like to get some of those numbers so I could do a bit more comparison as to what it is we're tasting. I did found a lab that could do octyl acetate, which is that orange marmalade note, and it's quite a bit of that. But I just taste so much in it, and I'd like to know that I'm not crazy, and be able to try and quantify this in some scientific way, I guess.
Is anybody else get a little pineapple or something a little more tropical?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And that might be where I was headed, like with the lime idea too. Like it to me, there's that citrus character, but it's not straight orange marmalade. And then there's also like the effervescence on this, like on the finish. I don't know if you guys are getting that. Like, it's crazy. It's beautiful. It's sweet. It's tropical all the way to the very back. Then you finish, and then it's almost like everything dries from the back of your mouth to the front, and then that sweetness that's almost single malt comes back forward on it.
Yeah,
that is a really cool effect. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how that's magic, is what that is.
Well, it's I'm certainly going to call it magic because I don't entirely know how I did it either. So we're going to go with that.
All I need a gallon of the white dog of this to make absinthe out of, Todd.
I can do that. Oh, wouldn't that be that would be fun. Well, we're still using Pisco.
Nice.
And there's definitely some notes in there. Yeah, we've been doing that for forever as the base for our absinthe. But I can see what you're talking about there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so pleased with it. I'm very happy with where it's headed. And we're also, this is total Allen fodder right here. We're a few steps away from getting a yeast brink and going back to jug and old school 100% liquid again.
Oh yeah.
This is where I started in Ann Arbor, then drifted into a mix between the two. And I was looking at our dry yeast tab for the new still. And I'm looking at that number going, oh, hey guys, this is great news. I'm showing the distilling crew. And they're like, that's a shit ton of money. I said, yeah, you know what this means? This means we can probably get a yeast propagator and say, see you later to the dry. And they got all kinds of excited because that opens the door for some really, really fun fermentation. So I thought you'd like to hear that, Alan. So
absolutely, man. That's great.
I gotta get the guy with the checkbook to say yes, but I think we're a couple weeks away from him doing that, and then
I know where there's some antique stuff at.
We'll be back to what I told him was we have to do the larger and make sure we get the yield. The antique stuff I will absolutely be contacting you about.
Yep.
Both for storage and for the first few steps, but being able to get it up to the larger amounts consistently.
Yep.
That was part of the conversation that I have to have with the guy that's writing the check, is that I can't have, that yield wasn't what we wanted, kind of thing. So we got to be grown-ups here a little bit, but
5.5 barrels, not 6.
That's right. That's right.
When this comes off the still, what's the new make like? Are you getting similar profiles or
no, it's nothing like what you're tasting. It is lavender, and lavender.
Oh wow.
Like to an overwhelming amount. in the aroma, in the finish, in the mid palate, everywhere. And as you get used to it, you can start to pick out, you know, some of the spicier notes that Alan mentioned, right? You know, where it's like, is that cardamom? No, it's not cardamom. You know, like you get some spicy notes. You have 4-vinyl guaiacol that you can smell and taste in the mash. The spiciness that you get Hefeweizen, or you know, to me, you know, Fenchone, which is this. How do I describe Fenchone? It's more of a chewy kind of, you know, anise flavor to it. You can pick up kind of this kaleidoscope of what is that.
Well, it's fun. You mentioned the cardamom, and I didn't think about it at first on this one, but there's cardamom there, but it honestly, and this is in a good way, it almost goes a little like Dr. Pepper. Right? There's it's there. There's that note is in there, and I didn't even think about that until you mentioned cardamom.
Well, you know, you know, if you look at some of the old cola recipes, and this is going to be I got the crossover into music, guys. Okay, there's a Brian Eno album. It's 75 minutes long. It's one goddamn song, and I of course bought it in the 90s because I was a dork and thought I was cool. Called Neroli, and Neroli is orange blossom oil, and it has a very, very distinctive aroma to it. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's the most wonderful mix of soft citrus and honeysuckle and elderflower and all of these. It's just a very, very highly valued oil that's been used in perfumes, but also was a very common ingredient to use in sodas back in the 1800s, root beer and that kind of thing. And Coca-Cola is thought to have had neroli in it originally, but it's this very distinctive in the sense that this is a total oxymoron. It's a very distinctive, I can't put my finger on this. It's kind of like bergamot. Bergamot is one of those things that if you ask any American what the hell is bergamot, they have no idea. But I promise you, they've smelled it, they've tasted it in Trix, they've tasted it in fruit stripe gum. It's just a nondescript citrus kind of flavor that's very, to borrow Alan's word, effervescent. And we're distilling it. We're releasing an orange liqueur this year that has neroli in it, orange blossom liqueur in it. I can see that in the distillate a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot going on in that, and it is delicious. It is it is really, really good. They're both really good. And it's crazy. They're a year apart, right? I mean, that's a substantial difference. I mean, you can see it's not you can see they're related, but it doesn't seem exactly linear. You know what I mean?
No. It's not, and it's taken a while for me to get used to it. And it's also, you know, I wish we had more, you know, better marketing so that we could explain to people that the blue label is nothing like the red label. It is nothing like the white label. And you know what it is we're going to be releasing this fall is going to be about 6.5 years old ish, right around in there. For the holiday release this year.
But you know, I think that's what's great about what you're doing though with the 3-chamber and what you guys do in general, right? This is not you're not making a lot of it, right? No. And B, this is for the people who really, really get deep into this stuff, right? So you can change that label whatever color you want to as many years as you want to, and those same people, they're gonna come back after it.
Yeah. We've been very lucky. But, you know, the other thing that, you know, that we did on the pricing that I guess we could have done a better job of explaining to people, we wanted to make sure you could get it.
Yeah.
So it's still on some shelves, and I'm happy about that. I mean, it's the opposite of what you know some of the larger distillers are doing, where they want them to just disappear and you know, create that fear of missing out thing. But we wanted to make sure that people had a chance of actually getting it. And if we priced it too low, it would have gotten sucked up and put on the secondary market. And I have no interest in lining that pocket and making it so that it's really hard to get, right? Where then you've got that. I looked for Taylor Swift tickets for my daughter. Here's how out of touch I am. So this is Dad's perspective. Taylor Swift was some lady who did a song for the show Pets 2, a cartoon that I watched with my daughter called Welcome to New York. And my daughter loved it, loved this song. And when I would drive her back from school and that song would come up on her little playlist, I would pull the car over. We'd get it, somewhere safe, obviously. And we'd dance, right? That was it. That was our little thing. I thought she was like insert teen pop star, that she was long gone. and so I'm like, oh, she's on tour. I'm going to see if I can get tickets, thinking she's going to play at some small venue. Right? Whoops. So she's playing at Mile High Stadium or whatever the hell they're calling the Broncos Stadium now.
Right.
Like 2 shows. They're up in the nosebleeds. I didn't get them. Her friend's mom actually got them. So it's going to be her very first concert. They're up in the nosebleeds, and I think they were $400. I had yeah, exactly.
You're going to have to push that new 3-chamber back.
So in other unrelated news, the 3-chamber still is now $10,000 a bottle. But
brown paper label.
That's right. I had absolutely no idea that Taylor Swift was like the biggest star on the planet. I had no idea because of dumb old dad. So anyways, she's going to go. I didn't have a thing to do with it. Her friend's mom bought 4 tickets. My wife's going. Go with God, have fun, go see her show. And I'm sure they'll have a great time. And she's not at the age yet where she understands how obscene that is.
Right.
So I got to start getting into the stuff that I like. That's like still a $15 ticket somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's get ready to talk a little bit more music. And before we do that, we want to tell you about our friends over at Stave and Bean. Corey Welch and John Wadle. They started this company a little over about a year and a half ago. And they will hand select coffee beans and age them in whiskey barrels. And Alan, we've got in this photo here a couple of bags that you had commissioned, I believe. So tell us about that.
Yeah, neither of those can be easy to explain because they're both super complicated. Both of them were once used 15-gallon barrels from Wood Hat Spirits with their various corn whiskeys in them, and I brought them back here and did. I believe one originally I had apple brandy in for a year and then dumped that and made some blackberry wine for a friend that I fortified with apple brandy and had that in there for a couple months. And sent that down to John and Corey, and they roasted that into a coffee for the If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything podcast. And the other one is, again, once used Wood Hat barrel that became a smoked malted corn, Applewood smoked malted corn whiskey with some Amburata wood in the barrel. And then they did that for the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute.
Yeah.
Cool.
So neither of those is easily marketable.
I've caught a couple of those episodes. That's so great.
Oh, thank you.
What you're doing is so cool.
Well, if you catch me saying something incredibly wrong, please let me know.
Oh no, I haven't. Nothing of the sort has happened, and what I would have given to have that in about the year 2000. So I just think what you're doing is just great.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully, it translates into some current home distillers becoming legal distillers over time. That's the goal.
So there you have part 1 of our conversation with Todd Leopold. Hope you enjoyed it. Be on the lookout for part 2 coming out next week. Until then, I want to tell you where you can find Todd on social media. Go to Leopold Brothers on Instagram. That is LEOPOLD POLDBROS, Leopold Bros on Instagram. You can follow them there, see what all they have to post. As for the folks that were on the show, Drew Crowley is at drew.crowley63. Alan Bishop is at The Alchemist Cabinet on Instagram. And as for the show itself, you can find us on YouTube. If you want to watch the show, hit that subscribe button. We'd appreciate it. You can listen to the show on your favorite podcast platform, as long as that platform is Apple, Spotify, or Google. We have a Facebook page where we post all of our shows. We have a Facebook group where we would love for you to come in, be a part of that group. Tell people what you're drinking that night. Tell people what you're listening to while you're drinking it. Maybe it's something that somebody hasn't heard or tasted before. Maybe it's something that they had tried years ago, and it's a great reminder to go back to it again. But we'd love to have you join us on our YouTube page as well. So until next time, grab my glass. On behalf of our wonderful guest, Todd Leopold, our wonderful guest host, Alan Bishop, and Drew Crowley, and myself, cheers, love, and Freebird. Good night, everybody.